Thank you. Today, I'm excited to share my research about graduate school and love. My name is Yoon Cha. I'm in the Sociology department, and this is a paper that I'm working on with my advisor, Dr. Hyunjun Park, on who graduate degree holders marry and how that affects our understanding of trends in educational homogamy. So first, to define the term, educational homogamy refers to marriages between two people who have the same levels of education. I like to think of the Obamas, who both have JDs as their highest degrees, as well as honorary degrees from multiple institutions nowadays. Sociologists have been traditionally interested in this topic because it has implications for social inequality and social reproduction, specifically household level. So if you think about having two parents who are really highly educated, there's a concentration of advantages in those households. Conversely, if you have two low educated parents, you could also have concentrations of disadvantages. And that's how it relates to social stratification. So two pieces of bad news for you here. This is my last picture of the Obamas. And secondly, past research has found that there's an increase in educational homogamy across time in the United States. So there's more people marrying people with the same levels of education. But we highlight the fact that most studies up to now combine the college graduates, the BA holders, and the graduate degree holders together. These are the MAs, the masters, the professional degree holders, such as the JDs, the MDs, and the DDSs, and the PhDs, in this category called the BA or higher. And we tried to address this gap in our paper for two reasons. Firstly, there was an explosion in the number of people getting graduate degrees nowadays. These are the proportions of wives and husbands in those age ranges with at least a graduate degree. And you can see by 2016, 19% of wives and 15% of husbands had an MA or higher. And so we're talking about a sizable portion of the United States society. Prior research has shown that these people are also very advantaged. They're socioeconomically well off. They are overrepresented in the top income and wealth distributions, and this is a graph of the average yearly income for educationally homogamous marriages, so people who married the same levels of education. You can see that the professionals blow everyone else out of the water, followed by PhDs, MAs, and BAs. But remember, this is only one dimension. So we're just talking about financial capital here, but as a PhD student, I would like to believe that I am also accruing some kind of other capital, such as social, cultural, or political capital, etc., as I'm getting my degree. And so if we're interested in this topic, because it has implications for resource concentration, we should really be distinguishing who these people are, who they marry, and how that affects our understanding of American social inequality. And so our research question really boils down to how does separating graduate degree holders affect our understanding of trends in educational homogamy? What does it tell us? We use data from the 1% censuses and the American community surveys ranging from 1960 all the way to 2016. We restricted the sample in the following ways. You can read that. But I really want to draw your attention to the educational categories. So for all years, we can separate graduate degree holders from the rest. But only starting from 1990 can we specifically identify what kind of degree they got. And this was as specific as it gets. Unfortunately, we're not able to identify the field that they were in. In terms of the analytic approach, log linear models are the norm in the literature using frequency tables because it allows us to control for the effects of educational expansion. This was a period where a lot of people started going to college, and I showed you before, a lot of people started getting graduate degrees as well. And so we have to control for those effects when looking at the associations between spouses' educations. And so first, some descriptive trends. Let's focus on the graph on the left. We used the BA or higher category, combining those two together, and calculated the percentage of homogamous marriages for each year, which are in bold at the bottom. And so as you can see, consistent with the prior literature, starting from 1970-ish all the way to 2016, there's an increase in the percentage of homogamous marriages. But on the right-hand side, if you separate the graduate degree holders out, you can actually see that the trend is the opposite. Starting from 1960 all the way to 2016, there's a decreasing trend in educational homogamy. But as I said before, this is not controlling for changes in the marginal distribution. There were a lot of people who started earning college degrees and graduate degrees, and so we have to control for those effects. which is why we turn to log linear models, which allow us to calculate the odds of educational homogamy across time and control for those effects. So again, starting with the BA or higher category, if we use that, you can see that there's an increasing trend across time, which is again consistent with the prior literature, although it's sort of plateaued in recent years. This is what happens when we separate graduate degree holders out. As you can see, it's pretty similar all the way to 2000, but the gap between the blue and the orange lines are getting bigger. In fact, for the blue lines, the odds of homogamy are decreasing in recent years, which suggests that there's more people marrying people with other levels of education. And so using log linear models, we can actually calculate the odds of who they marry if they don't marry people with the same levels of education. And so these are the odds of intermarriage between two education levels, the adjacent education levels. And I've highlighted a few for you. So let's start with the yellow line, which refers to intermarriage between college graduates, the BA holders, and the master's degree holders. And you can see relatively it's pretty high consistently throughout 1990 all the way to 2016, which means that there's a lot of these marriages happening. BAs are likely to marry master's degree holders. But if you look at the blue line, the professional PhD intermarriage, you can see that the odds were pretty low initially, but they've been rising since then. So there's more of these marriages happening. The likelihood is going up. The opposite is true for the MA professional intermarriages. Those odds are going down, so we have less of those marriages happening. And now I don't show it here, but we also calculated the odds of intermarriages between MAs and PhDs, BAs and PhDs, and BAs and professionals as well. And they are all pretty similar with the orange line. They're low or decreasing in recent years. And so we have this very interesting trend where the BAs marry the MAs a lot, the PhDs marry the professionals a lot, but those two groups don't intermingle as much. And so what can we take away from our findings so far? Well, first we found that there's more intermarriage when you separate the graduate degree holders out. There's slightly decreasing rather than increasing rates of educational homogamy, especially in recent years. But at the same time, we found that there was a lot of exclusion at the top, with the PhDs and professionals marrying each other a lot, but not marrying the others as much. And of course, this has very broad implications for social stratification and social reproduction, namely, maybe the formation of educationally elite households, like the super elite. And I will leave you on a very somber note. Thank you.